All right, everybody, this is In Liberty and Health, episode 25. I seriously cannot believe I'm a quarter of the way to 100, which sounds ridiculous, but we're rock and rolling here. I got Ben with me today. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. How you doing?
Just here, freezing my ass off in southwestern Pennsylvania. It's getting pretty brutal out there. Things snowy, cold, miserable your way,
No, I think they're calling for a little bit of snow on like Wednesday, but
but it's
it's
cold,
just like a little.
miserable.
It's starting to get cold and miserable. It was like 63 here today,
Okay,
but
Jesus
now
Christ.
it rained and it just slowly the next few days temperatures dropping.
Yeah, the weather today was kind of nice in the morning, and I went out to go get a few cars throughout the day, and also I was wearing was like a sweatshirt, and I'm like, oh well, you know what? It like in the morning it wasn't too bad. I walked into work, I was all right, and then all of a sudden throughout the day, I'm like, this fucking cold rain really fucking sucks. Like I had a 2020 GMC Sierra. Well, before I start going down the rabbit hole, let me ask you the basic questions here. You're a fellow libertarian and you're a mechanic. So before we start talking mechanic stuff or libertarian stuff, how'd you get to where you are?
Um, well, the mechanic side, I started out in high school. There was a small fleet I worked for on a heavy duties. It was a tractor trailer company. I worked for them for just a year, and then I went to Universal Technical Institute. I went there, and then ended up getting into the international truck program there. So then I ended up actually having to move out here to Pennsylvania because I ended up getting a job in Maryland. Because the only way I get the job paid for was if uh, I went to a dealership to pay for the training.
Okay, so it was kind of
And
like a sponsor. The college that I went to in Cleveland had the BMW program where they essentially you get sponsored by a dealer essentially, and then they would potentially assist with you moving, or they would pay for your training. Is that kind of like what that was?
uh, they didn't assist with moving, but you could get, I guess, like some guys were able to get dealerships to get them to move.
Mhm.
I I wasn't lucky enough to do that, but I was still because I'm originally from New Jersey. That's where I originally started out, and then went to school, and then I ended up out here in Pennsylvania
So you're
because I worked
probably, oh, sorry, God.
because I worked because for the longest time I worked all the way down in Gaithersburg, Maryland, which is
Mhm.
an hour outside of DC.
Okay, so how far away did you have to move?
It's about 3.5 hours from home.
Okay, well that's not, insanely far, but it's still pretty far. Um, yeah, that's all good stuff. Yeah, I moved about 2.5 hours away to go to college, and then I moved back to where I'm from. I interviewed in Florida, I interviewed in Kentucky, I had jobs set up in Mississippi, but it just so turned out that the best jobs just happened to be back here in southwestern Pennsylvania. Now looking back, I kind of wish I would have took the lower paying job down in Florida. Especially after this last year, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit. So, kind of moving on there, what got you to libertarianism? Because there's usually like two kind of stories that you typically hear, but what's which one were you, and if not either, then how?
I grew up in like the normal standard like conservative household where it was vote for like whatever Republican was running that year. So um, I think first year I could vote was Mitt Romney. What year was Mitt Romney? 2012 or 2000? He was 2012.
12. Hmm.
That was like the first year, and then I saw his platform, and I'm like, well, this has nothing. This isn't related to me at all. So, and then I kind of just like gave up or didn't care about politics for probably until like 2 years ago, and I still really didn't care. And I kind of like tried to let I did like some test online, and I was like, oh, it's like, oh, you're a libertarian, you're socially liberal, fiscally conservative, and then I found an episode of Rogan with Dave Smith, and then I got sucked down a rabbit hole, Paul. That's when I
Mhm.
started reading about Ron Paul. I started reading Rothbard, Hoppe, Bastiat, whole list of people.
So did for me personally, when I kind of got down in the rabbit hole of libertarianism, it wasn't until probably about maybe 2 years ago. I've been a libertarian probably for about 10 years, but the last 2 years really solidified my understanding of economics and especially war because before then I always thought, yeah, well, we're fighting these wars and it is what it is. Maybe we should be fighting them. They do hate us for our freedoms, whatever. And I came to the realization that Scott Horton and Dave Smith were really the two that kind of solidified my streak of libertarianism, which really brought me full circle. Um, so, kind of in that vein, was there ever like a big moment for you where everything seemed to click? Because, like I said, for me, Austrian economics and those two, Scott Horton and Dave Smith, and I guess you could say Peter Schiff when it comes to the economic side of stuff, those three right there were really the three that just completed my libertarian worldview and made me that much more interested in learning about libertarianism and Austrian economics.
After I discovered Dave, that's when I heard Scott Horton. That's where I kind of solidified the anti-war. I was pretty much like anti-war at that point, anyways. But he made it make more sense to me.
Sure.
And then I discovered Tom Woods, and then how I got into like Austrian economics was I started was it his the 10 books you have to read. He's got like a
Mhm.
list of 10 books to read, and then I read economics in one lesson, and then I've
Henry
been
Hazlitt, yeah.
yeah, slowly diving through more economic stuff. Like I just read "What Has Government Done to Our Money," and I don't know. I have a bunch of books on the bookshelf that I haven't touched yet.
Oh my God, yeah, dude, it's the worst thing in the freaking world. You keep buying these books, and then you lose more and more room on your bookshelf, and you're like, well, shit, when am I ever gonna get to it?
Like sometimes, like some of the Mises books are cheap too.
Mhm.
Like
Oh,
oh,
okay.
it can't be that. You're like it can't be that big of a book, and I'll buy it. Like especially Ludwig von Mises books, they're like
Yeah.
500 pages. Like this book was only $10, and
Holy shit.
yeah,
My
yeah,
God.
socialism. I didn't think it was gonna be that long. I'm like, oh, it's probably just gonna be a quick, short little thing
Mhm.
on socialism. Nope.
Yeah, dude, you got the whole freaking 5 meal course and dessert on how bad socialism is. Some people might bust my balls for this, but I really have not read that many libertarian books. Like trying to think if I actually have really read any. I know I've probably read one or two, but the most recent book that I read that was more economics based from the Austrian point of view was How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes, which is almost like a kid's book written by Peter Schiff and his brother. But I'd say for anybody that's kind of interested on like ground level kind of thing to just get into Austrian economics, that's probably my go-to, and I'm sure Economics in One Lesson is probably that way too. I have that book, but just haven't gotten around to reading it.
And I think Per Byland. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah.
I think he's coming out with another short book for economics in one lesson,
Oh,
or
okay.
similar to economics in one lesson. I think they said that last time I heard Jeff Dice say it was December. I think.
Okay. So in your job, are you paid like salary or flat rate?
I am hourly.
Okay, you're hourly. Okay. Well,
I wouldn't make
as
any money if we were flat rate.
okay, are all the guys in your shop flat rate or hourly?
We're all hourly. It's actually only two of us. It's me and my boss.
Okay, right on. Well, I've been a flat rate tech now for probably about a little over 6 years, I want to say. And it's going to sound almost cliche or stupid, but it really makes you kind of a capitalist in a way because you realize you got to bust your ass to make a living. Um, I've worked with plenty of guys who don't carry their own weight and they're outside smoking a cigarette every 2 seconds. They turn a bolt on a car and they go out and smoke a cigarette, or you work with the guys who sit on their phone all day, or go play grab ass with the writers, or go hang out back at parts. They're doing stuff that just isn't making them productive. Um, so I guess to kind of tail on to that, do you find that your job, kind of the blue collar lifestyle, makes you more attracted to libertarianism because it's more of, you work with your hands and it makes you realize the value of your work, which kind of ties back to
Yeah.
property rights. I know I'm going a long tangent here, but in my mind, you earn your living and it's very honest work, so you feel more appreciative of what you got. And once again, that gives you a better respect for property rights.
Yeah. Because you look I came into the field at a dealership, so we weren't flat rate there, but we were commission, or we could earn a commission check at the end of the month.
Sure.
So say I had to make $17,000 in a month.
Mhm.
If I made in labor, if I made that much in labor that month, I got $1,000 bonus check at the end of the month.
Right.
And then we were also always a short staffed shop too. So overtime was always available.
All right. So to tail on to that point, do you notice the trend too? And maybe it's just me, but it seems like you have a large group of young people kind of, constantly rotating in and out. And then usually there's a very, very small amount of people who are in the ages of like maybe 30 to 40. And then like the guys who are 40 to 60, there's like a larger concentration of them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the 20 to 30 range is very slim,
Hmm.
and a lot of guys just end up leaving the field.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like there's a
Or
lot more people going out than there are coming in. And I mean, I even noticed that when I started, because I started working for my dad almost 10 years ago, back 2012. And then I started a dealership in 2013. But the younger people really don't stick around in this field, or if they do, they have to move around a lot, which is interesting.
well, what I noticed with the trade schools is so many of them come out of school and they think they're going to be making $30 an hour, $25 an hour as a tech,
Yep.
and it's like, dude, you're going to be changing oil and maybe getting brakes. And if you're in a flat rate shop, most likely they're not going to give you brakes
For
because that's
years.
some that's some guy's bread and butter.
Yep.
That's where he's going to make his money for the month. So he's going to take, if he has a chance, he's going to take that ticket. He's not going to let the new guy get that ticket.
Yeah, I've kind of seen a lot of that play out, and honestly, all the shops I work for, I remember I used to hear guys saying that they were doing engines and stuff, hourly guys, right? And I've worked for probably about 5 or 6 different shops, and every single one, the hourly kids, all they did was change oil. Maybe they'd occasionally do brakes. They do all the light work. They do the tires. They do all the maintenance stuff, and then all the bigger stuff, it always went to the other guys. So I don't know if it was just every single shop that I worked at somehow never had hourly kids working on engines, or the other people I heard were bullshitting. But I think I know where I
Yeah,
fall
I
on
see.
that.
I think with the hourly, or on the diesel side, you come out and most companies have their own mechanics already.
Mm.
Like that you're doing work. It's not like you're doing some old ladies working on some old lady's car.
Yeah, it's
You're working on
fleets.
some fleet's truck. So most
Mhm.
likely the only reason it's coming to you is because of engine work or warranty work, check engine lights. So it was nice because I kind of I got thrown right into that.
Mhm. So you kind of started off at a little bit more of a higher level than most people perhaps might start at.
Yeah, I got most people I know that started in the diesel field started out as we had well, most people I talk to, it's an A, B, and a C tech.
Right.
I came out of school as a B tech just because I had training. I probably wasn't a B tech when I came out.
All right, can you kind of elaborate on what an ABC tech is? I have an idea, but just for people who might not be familiar with our field.
So a C tech is usually like your oil changes, greasing, brakes, changing light bulbs.
Maintenance.
Yeah, maybe doing some steering work
Hmm.
and suspension work if it's light. And then your B guys are like your transmissions, your clutches, uh radiators. They're usually like your grunts. Like they're usually doing like the heavy work. And then your A guys are usually like your specialists, like electrical. They they do engine work, or at least the the shops I worked at as an A tech, you still did engine work. But some shops, like an engine rebuild, got thrown down to the B tech. The A tech was just there to diagnose everything and move that work down the line, especially if it was something like a blown up motor or
Hmm.
something like that.
Right, I got you. Yeah. So you started as a little bit more than just your average maintenance tech, essentially. You kind of got fed to the wolves, which kind of happens to some people.
Yeah, you kind of got to get fed to the wolves, but at the same time, you
Yeah.
need a good teacher.
Mhm.
You need a good senior tech, which I was lucky and I had a good senior tech
Okay.
that
Well,
had
yeah,
no problem helping me.
you know what's funny? In my personal experience, um, all the flat rate guys that I've ever worked with, if you ever ask them for anything, any kind of help, they were 9 times out of 10 more than happy to come over and help you and try to get you steered in the right direction, which is kind of funny because you would think when the incentive is to just turn an ass load of time and bust out the next car, that no, everybody would be very, very selfish. But I think this goes to a greater thing that not a lot of people think about. I was talking to my buddy about welfare and how you could run welfare in a more libertarian world where you wouldn't be so coercive as it is now. Um, the picture I'm painting is essentially that people are more generous than people realize. Like you can get so much stuff by just asking people for it. You know, if you ask the average person if they would give $5 out of each check if they weren't being stolen from at the exorbitant rates that were being stolen from currently to give to charity, I guarantee you almost every single person that was asked would.
Yeah, which I'm trying to think like a perfect example Rothbard used was
Mhm.
the Mormon church. So the Mormon church like in their community, they try like they don't want you to accept welfare. If you need like help like financially, you go to the church.
Mhm.
And that was like one of his examples of private charities that I've seen him use.
Yeah, and the nice thing about private charities is that there's a lot more incentive for people to do better because a private charity will not continue to fund somebody who's complacent, right? You know, the charity will eventually be taken away because they realize that the charity's being taken advantage of. And in a more libertarian society, in my mind, um, I would think that the people who cannot provide for themselves, if you have stronger communities where you know your neighbor and, let's say your neighbor watches your kids or what have you, those who are not able to provide for themselves, I guarantee you that, hey, maybe the community would go around and say, hey, do you want to help buy this person groceries? And then it'd be the next person on the block and then the next person. Like people think in Ancapistan, which obviously we're probably never going to get there in our lifetime.
No.
People think that there'd be people starving out in the streets and that corporations would be dumping oil into your drinking water. But, I think the exact opposite is the case.
Yeah. But well, the thing is, like, even if you wanted to get close to Ancapistan, you still need tight knit communities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's like a big like cultural change you need to
Mhm.
see before like if Ancapistan was to ever happen, you need a big cultural change where it's help your neighbor.
Mhm. Right. Well, yeah, because when you strip out that closeness of communities and you eliminate the ability to kind of go to your neighbor and trust your neighbor, then who do you go to? You go to the government because you know that they're going to be able to help you out because they have a printing press. They have the Federal Reserve. Um,
Yeah.
I guess the other question I had, and it just occurred to me now again to ask you, when the last 2 years essentially happened and the COVID came around, how did it affect your field? Um, I want your take, and then I'll kind of give my take because this is I got an idea how it happened to most people, but I'm really interested to hear it from a diesel perspective because it seems like there's a lot less diesel techs than there are just regular auto techs. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I got pretty lucky since I'm a school, like I work for a school bus contractor now compared to
Hmm.
working at a dealer. So school instantly shut down and was that March that of 2020.
Hmm.
And I didn't have to, or they didn't lay any of us off. Uh, they actually, I was only working like half days and I was doing like dumb shit around the shop. Like I was helping like mow the property and everything like that. And they were still paying me my full rate. I got extremely lucky compared to a lot of other people.
Hmm.
Because I got lucky because the school district, the county still had to pay was had it still had a contract to honor, so they still had to pay our bus drivers. They paid everybody, so I got extremely lucky with that. And then now everything's pretty much it's not back to normal. Kids are well, we don't wear masks in our building. We don't have to unless you
Hmm.
want to. Um,
But nobody
there
does.
nobody does. There's like maybe like one or two,
Yeah.
which that's how like it is when you go into the grocery store where I live.
Hmm.
And then but also lucky that my boss like he's like refusing to get the vaccine
Hmm.
and everything, so it's like a company like policy, like he doesn't act like he will never plans on asking anyone if they're vaccinated or
Hmm.
any of that.
Right. So, if I understand this correctly, and if I recall correctly, most bus garages normally aren't, and they're contracted essentially by the state, but they're not owned by the state. Is that the way that goes?
Yeah, so we're contracted through the county, so
Okay. Yeah.
some counties in Maryland have their own buses, but Carroll County, I forget how many years ago it was, they got rid of their own buses and they rather just contract it out to everybody.
Sure. Yeah. So my experience with COVID last year, I was working at a different job than I am now, but I had been there for probably just over 5 years at that point, and they originally tried to do like a staggered kind of shift, and that was a clusterfuck. It was like, okay, so one team would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, another team would work Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and it was just dumb. And they did that for like a week or two, and then they laid a whole bunch of us off. And I was one of those people who got laid off, and I couldn't fucking believe it. I'm like, dude, cars break. They don't stop breaking either. So, why the hell did I get laid off? But we eventually got called back. I ended up working for my dad under the table for a brief period of time, or for a federally signed paycheck. Wink, wink. But yeah, I worked for my dad, and then once they called me back to work, then things kind of slowly picked up. I was kind of surprised because we were a little bit busier than I thought we would be, but we had to wear masks, and to my surprise, a lot of the boomer cons that I worked with were like very, very submissive to the COVID deal. And we didn't know what was going on, but I mean, even months, maybe even like a year later, these guys were still pretty bought into the narrative. So that was kind of my experience with it. The other question I want to ask here now is you obviously work with a lot of blue collar people as I do. Do you see them, I'm guessing they're mostly GOP, but do you see like a change in them at all over the last 2 years, or does it seem like they're kind of going with the inertia of the regime?
Most most of them are like anti that not well not anti vax but anti this vax.
Hmm.
Um they're like refute like they think the vaccine passports are ridiculous. Like if that is ever a thing, they think it's ridiculous. And a lot of them don't like the government right now at
Hmm.
all. And I don't know if
No,
that's just because their
yeah,
guy's not in, or
okay.
it's actually they don't like the government.
Okay, yeah. In my opinion, in my experience, is that I think it's more just the fact that it's a Democrat. I really don't think these people are principally anti-government. We were talking a little bit back and forth before the show about kind of the GOP versus LP, and the guys who are the GOP route seem to want to capitalize on the anti-government moment that we're living through with the GOP. And I understand that. I think it's a good idea, but the only problem is that if you look at what happened with Trump and his 4 years, is that he did nothing to stop the growth of the state. In fact, he grew it and then spent more than any president before. He bombed more, more frequently than Obama did in his first year. Then he killed more people via drone strikes in his first year than Obama did in 8 years. Um, do you think these people are principally anti-government, or do you think it's just, hey, Trump's not in, fuck Biden, or well, let's go Brandon?
I don't know. I'm like kind of like stuck. I kind of think like some like a lot of them are like anti-government now because like after the Bush years, then Obama, that like nothing good has happened to them. Like Trump got elected, but other than that, like nothing good has happened to them. So like I think a lot of them are starting to see that the government's not your friend. But then there's other ones that I just think that are just loyal to Trump.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of what I've noticed. And the frustrating thing is that I agree with them on most of the things that they say, but the problem is that when Trump was in, they didn't agree with what they were saying. Although they said it, they didn't understand that Trump actively worked counter to that. And that was perhaps one of the things that made me sharply reject the right um, for a while. And I still feel some of that resentment because it's annoying because he had the perfect rhetoric as a candidate. I mean, he almost sounded like Ron Paul sometimes talking about interest rates and the wars. But then as soon as he got in, he flipped another coin and no one criticized him for it. And it's frustrating because the left had a lot of potential to be good and they just wasted it all.
Yeah, uh I don't know. I feel like but most of like a lot of the Trump supporters I talk to are have been like they're better than Trump.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree. And
Like
when
they're
I
more like liberty leaning than anything. And it's just I don't know. I think the thing is majority of them don't spend pay a lot of attention to politics. They're not like us who are stuck like online paying attention to everything. They're kind of just like they turn Fox News on Saturday morning or maybe like turn it on for like 15 minutes before they go to work
yeah,
rather than
I I do think that's probably your average person, and that's
I
the
mean
other
that's your
part.
average leftist too.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem with this whole political thing is that a lot of people want everybody to become a libertarian overnight, and everybody wants every other person in the world to want to live in Ancapistan tomorrow. But the fact is that that is such a sharp uphill battle, and the average person just doesn't care. They got a wife and kids, they got a dog and a picket fence and a brand new truck, and they just don't care to sit down and read excerpts from Rothbard or Mises.
Yeah, like what do you can't tell someone, oh, read Rothbard. Like being like, well, first of all, who the fuck is Murray Rothbard?
Right,
And then
absolutely. Yeah.
then you're gonna have to explain like my one friend, like I've kind of like red pilled him, but I introduced him to Thomas Massey first, and I was like, he is the closest to my political alignment. is Thomas Massey, and then he started following him and everything, and that he like loves Thomas Massey.
Yeah, that's honestly a great way to start somebody, I would think, because Thomas Massey is good on essentially everything, and he even calls himself a libertarian. And this goes back to my point about the GOP. Look at what he did in 2020. He wanted to force a vote on all the stimulus spending, and he, oh, the one congressperson tweeted and said Thomas Massey has tested positive for being an asshole. I mean, they drug his name through the mud, and even Trump said that he should be kicked out of the GOP for being I think he called him a second-rate GOP. It was something. I'm sure whoever's listening could find the tweet. But this goes, like I said, it goes back to my point about the GOP is that look at how a principled, liberty-minded Republican was treated by the Republican establishment for saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't sign all this socialist spending. That's how he was treated. And you guys think you can take over the GOP? I love to be proven wrong. I don't think I will be, though.
Yeah, see, but the thing is, the federal GOP didn't like him, but I don't know what it would be like if you went and talked to one of his constituents at the same time.
Yeah, honestly, I
Because
think
he wins by a lot when like he won by a lot. I think his last election.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think it was
sure
like
he did.
70
Yeah,
to 30.
yeah. I
And same
think
thing with Rand.
yeah, the constituency definitely likes them, but it's frustrating because they're the best of the GOP currently. I hear a lot of people talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and some of the other guys. I'm just not as
Mike
familiar with
Lee's
them.
pretty good from Utah.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
too.
Well, Mike Lee's kind of that Ron Paul revolution. But he's
Yeah,
not
I'm pretty
quite
sure
as he's not quite as outspoken as Rand or Thomas Massey. And what does everybody love Rand for? They love him because not only is he Ron Paul's son, but nobody has grilled Fauci like him. And that is like one of my favorite things in the world is just listen to him fucking stick it to the man. And that's when he's at his best. But when he's saying, well, maybe we should fund the Iron Dome for Israel or just being milk toast, that's where he loses people. But when he's kind of acting in that vein of his father, that's what gets people motivated. And if we had more people in the GOP who weren't afraid to be a firebrand like that, then I think you would have a lot more people attracted to it.
Yeah, yeah. Massey's pretty good at Massey, like he's principled. Like obviously he's the most principled Republican or libertarian esque. Because I think he was the only Republican that voted no for the Iron Dome.
I think so. I know, like I said, I know Rand voted for
He
it.
was
Yeah.
also one of only like 9 people that voted no for the Iron Dome.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of a lot of nuance. Well, no, I shouldn't say nuance. There's a lot of funding around that. Like they're, Israel's probably lining the pockets of some people in there, and they're probably really pushing to make sure
Oh
that some of those
yeah, you
people
got
vote.
APAC.
Yeah, yeah, that they're buying some of the people up to just, clear the way there. Um, yeah, dude, it's fucked up. So. Are you kind of into the Libertarian Party and what's going on there, or what's your take on the LP as a whole?
I'm involved in my local LP. We just about a month because it was Adams Franklin County, and we just split it off into 2 last month. So we're like a new affiliate.
Okay. God, I feel like
So
I
we're
know.
just getting off the ground.
Yeah, I feel like I know some people out there, but it's just slipping my
Um,
mind right now.
Maybe Neil Bellevue. He's the chair.
Name rings a bell.
I
Yeah,
think that's how you say his last name.
yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, that's cool. So, I've said this a lot on the podcast as well, but 2022 and 2024, I think, are going to be really, really big years for the GOP and the Libertarian Party, and unfortunately, potentially the Democrat Party too, if the liberty-minded people don't play their cards correctly. Do you share that same optimism going for the next 2 to 3 years, or are you a little bit
Um,
more skeptical?
I think we're gonna see a red wave in 2022 for midterms because with the rhetoric the left keeps using, where like, well, this is white supremacy and everything, it's gonna turn your urban soccer moms and all them to vote Republican because
Hmm.
that's what you saw in Virginia.
Right. Well,
And
kind of.
then
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
and then that yeah, that's pretty much what I see the way that that's why I feel like the country's going to go midterms is it's going to go you're going to see a red wave and then luckily then Biden's not going to really be able to do anything. He won't be able to push any of his bills.
Yeah. Well, I'm very, very optimistic as well because, they floated out the Build Back Better plan initially, the infrastructure plan, and it was 3.9 trillion, if I remember correctly. And then they knocked it down to 1.9 trillion, and it just kept getting knocked down, knocked down, and knocked down. But I think the truth of the matter is that there's not a lot of appetite for big government anymore. I don't think there's an appetite for the vaccine passports. I don't think there's an appetite for what the left is pushing, and I believe that's starting to show up. Um, I don't think people want any of that, so they're going to vote in a way that they think is conducive to not producing that. Um, do you feel a similar way?
Yeah. Yeah, I, I don't know. I go around my town and the Trump flags and everything are still up.
Yeah.
At least from my area,
No,
it's
definitely
just it
around
seems
mine as well.
like they have no like it's gonna go red. Like I haven't talked to anybody that's like, oh, Biden's been doing great. Like this administration's great.
Yeah, well, it's kind of undeniable
And
at
that's
this
even
point.
from like left. That's even from left people. Like
Well,
except for boomers.
mm,
I have like a strong like I used to like be like, oh man, I hate when people complain about boomers, but at the same time, they're like the worst voting base.
yeah.
The boomer liberals.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like undeniable at this point, and my only problem with blaming Joe Biden, and look, I'll blame him all day because he is largely responsible for a lot of what we're seeing now, is that if they think that Trump is the answer, then they're sadly mistaken because who signed all the stimulus in 2020? Because you hear everybody saying Biden inflation, but it's like, did he cause it? Yeah, because he was vice president for 8 years. He's been in the government for 50 years. So yeah, he's absolutely very, very guilty. But right now, we're specifically feeling the inflation caused by the last, 20 years of 0% interest rates, right? We had George
Yeah,
Bush double the debt, Obama double the debt. And then you get to Trump. Trump spends $8 trillion in the matter of 4 years. The more, or more than any president has ever spent in the course of 4 years. And then plus we handed everybody free money. We told people not to work, so we didn't produce anything. And then our trade deficit was exploding because we sent everybody a bunch of free money and they could buy goods offshores. So that started creating the backlog of ships that are logged off the shores. So literally, like, Trump handed Biden this fucking powder keg, right? This powder keg of a fucking horrible economy. And then all Biden had to do was walk into the White House and that powder keg went right the fuck off. But it kind of makes me optimistic because now it's like so bad that people can't deny that Democrats are absolutely horrible. But the bad part is that if they think just putting Trump back in will fix it, that's not the right solution.
no, and yeah, like the majority of people are feeling inflation
Hmm.
that I know.
Yeah.
Everyone's tired of going to the gas pump and paying. Well, I'm lucky I get gas down in Maryland, so it's like 40 cents cheaper.
You lucky bastard.
But yeah, like I don't know, the majority of people are mad. I
Hmm.
haven't met a single person that's not mad about how much they're spending when they go to the grocery store, when they buy gas. It's just essentials.
Hmm. No, absolutely. And I'm sure you're feeling it just as much as I am. And it is very frustrating because I think libertarians need to target it this way. We need to tell people this straight up like, look, they have stolen your purchasing power. The government has issued currency recklessly to spend $10 million on test tubes for COVID, which turned out to be empty pop bottles. They sent millions of dollars overseas to build natural gas stations. I mean, you read the Festivus report and it'll make you want to fucking blow your brains out. But all that, in effect, was stealing your purchasing power out from underneath you. And this hits poor people and elderly people on Social Security on a fixed income worse than it hits you or I, because we still have the potential to get a raise, right? Interest rates are so low that their savings and their Social Security, the money that they had tucked away, never grew. It just got destroyed in this inflationary environment. So, yeah, dude, it's bad, and I think people are angry. I think people are feeling the disaster that is our government.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I can't think of anyone that I don't know that's not pissed when they go to the store.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think
and
like I would spend like 60, or like last year, I think I was spending maybe like $50 a week. And then now when I go to the store and I don't even get that much, I went to the grocery store. I got a pack of New York strip steaks, so, like other little stuff, and my bill was like $70. I was like, this is insane.
yeah, yeah, dude. I use Butcher Box, and I remember they actually sent out an email and said, "Well, we got to raise our prices." So literally before they raise their prices, I got like it was probably like 40, 50 pounds worth of just different cuts sent to my house, and I'm about due to get a little more because this was back in September. And yeah, dude, it just sucks. And nobody has seen a raise in their pay or their retirement gone up that much. You see the
I got a
stock.
30-cent raise.
Yeah, well, yeah, I left a job and then got a raise, going from job to job and then got another raise after about 6 months. But still, I'm sure it's not going to equal out over the next couple of years. You hear the Federal Reserve
No.
Chairman Jerome Powell saying that inflation is transitory, and now he officially says it's no longer transitory. But you know what? People want to knock him for saying that it's transitory all the time, but he is absolutely spot on. It is transitory. The inflation is transitory to higher inflation. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's constantly moving up.
Yeah, yeah. It has no signs of slowing down, no signs of getting any lower. Um, we're gonna keep feeling this in our pocketbook for potentially years to come because you're never gonna have another Paul Volcker like we had back in what was it, the late 80s, early 90s, who put interest rates up to 20% to rein in inflation. But they just couldn't do it now because essentially all our debt is short term, right? So we're
Yeah.
borrowing money to pay back the money that we owe, and we already spend 150% of what we take in taxes. So I mean, it is like just such a self-licking ice cream cone of a fucking disaster that's going to put this country into a really, really bad place. uh
Yeah, meat's probably the most aggravating
oh my god, yeah.
because I work out and everything, and it's like, well, I want to eat lean cuts of meat, but they're
Mhm.
so goddamn expensive.
Okay, all right, well, you know what, since you brought that up, since this show is mainly around liberty and health, what does your training look like? And let me just say this before you go off here. I'm very glad that you eat meat because the amino acids in meat, and the proportions, the protein, and the satiation you get from the protein in the meat is the most important thing about eating meat. And people can argue with me all day about it, but look, it's like an undeniable fact. Eggs, whey protein, and meat have the highest amount of the amino acid leucine, which is key in triggering muscle protein synthesis, which is the process by which your body builds muscle. So, yeah, what do you do to kind of stay in shape? Because I'm sure you see plenty of older mechanics are in pretty rough condition.
Yeah, well, I think it was about 2 years ago. I was 250 pounds, and everything was always sore. I
Hmm.
was tired of the way I looked and everything, and it was starting to hurt. So like, all right, I'm gonna lose weight. So the first thing I did was cut out soda, and then I saw my weight drop big time
Mhm,
for a little bit, and then I was still around like 230. So then that's when I started working out and eating healthier and everything.
mhm.
Originally started out as me just going and doing cardio, but that's the most boring thing in the world. So
Okay.
then
Yeah.
then I started lifting weights and everything, and now I pretty much just lift weights. I do like a push pull leg split.
You go 6 days a week?
Yeah, I do 3 days on, then a rest day, and then 3 days.
Okay. Yeah, you know what's funny is I'm on a push pull legs right now as well, and I'm doing a reverse diet where I slowly creep up calories. And it's funny you said you were 250 pounds about 3 years ago. If you listen to my podcast with Ted Naiman, I kind of dive into a little bit of my own history with diet and health. But I'm down to like 189 now, or well, I usually float around like 185 to 190 ish. But yeah, I'm doing push pull legs as well, and I'm trying to gain as much muscle as possible because I'm getting married next year. So I want to put on a little bit more lean mass. And the one thing I would say to people who are scared of gaining a few pounds is you got to look at your physique, your body, and your health is kind of like a bank account, right? So when you do a reverse diet, you slowly creep up your calories to help your metabolism. So once you lose a lot of weight, you slow your metabolic rate. So you're not going to be able to eat as much. You're not going to burn as much calories at rest. So it's good to do a reverse diet or potentially gain some fat. Not a lot. Now, that don't mean get sloppy, but gain a little bit of body weight so that way your metabolism goes back up and you're in a better place metabolically. You're putting deposits into the bank. Um, and
Yeah,
it's
I
good
did
that
the reverse diet too.
okay, cool,
Because
cool.
I got down to I got down to 185, and like I just felt like I felt tiny. I didn't
Hmm.
I was
Yeah, I
like
get.
I waited. So then I started bulking up, and I went a little overboard because like right now I'm at 205.
Yeah.
But but at the same time, like now all my lifts keep going up as I'm maintaining. So it's like, oh,
Mhm.
I don't want to lose weight again.
All right. How tall are
So
you?
5'10".
Okay, so you're a little tiny bit short of me. I'm about 6 foot.
And then yeah, so in a couple months or at the end of January, then I'm gonna start cutting weight again.
Okay,
Because
yeah, I
the
got you.
problem is I don't want to lose I don't want to start I don't want to go in a calorie deficit because then every lift is gonna start going down.
Well, in my opinion, and I use the Carbon Diet Coach app, and this thing has been a freaking lifesaver. It took all the guesswork out of my nutrition. Um, if you lose weight very, very slowly, you'll more than likely maintain all your lifts. So, like, what you'd want to go for is maybe like zero point 0.8 of a pound to at most like 1.2 pounds a week. If you stick right around there, you won't be that hungry. You're not going to feel like crap, and you'll lose the weight. But it just depends on what your goal is. Like you could fucking fast for days and days at a time and lose a ton of weight. I've done that more times than I could count. But the problem is, as soon as you break the fast, it's like feast or famine. It's time to rock and roll.
Yeah, like I don't plan on going crazy. That's why like it's probably gonna be like a 12-week cut
Hmm.
because I want to get down to like or try to get down to 190 around that area because 180 felt a little too small, and then
Hmm.
once I got up around like 190, that's when I felt pretty good.
Cool. Yeah. So when I was carnivore last year, and I remember I got down to the 180s, and I was probably running close to 20 miles a week, and same deal, I felt super tiny. But then um, I went off carnivore about 6 months ago, and when I got down to 179 was the lightest I was. I had visual abs, and I felt tiny, but I realized, okay, well now I should probably start reverse dieting to build back up my metabolism and to put on a little bit more lean mass. Now I maintain in the 180s, and I have every bit of muscle that I had when I was up in the mid 200 or the low 200s because I put the weight back on and then lost it slowly. So that's kind of been my experience with that. I'll ask you the bro question: how much you bench, if you bench at all?
I don't bench.
Okay, actually, what's funny is I don't either. I do dumbbell pressing. Do you deadlift or squat?
I was deadlifting and squatting, but I don't know. I just always felt like I always had lower back problems. There might be something going on with my back because no matter like with squatting, no matter how I changed like my feet placement and everything like that, I always had pain in my lower back.
Mm-hmm.
And like I would do it with like I would try with like lightweight and everything like that and keep trying to fix my stance and I just never so I hack squat
Mm-hmm. I
and
got you.
leg press for legs pretty much. Like those are my two main lifts for legs. And then I deadlifted my max for deadlifts like 380 something, 385
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, my best deadlift I set a couple weeks ago. I got 500 almost the whole way up. I was like just short of completing it, but I was beating myself up pretty damn good. I want to say I was 185 and yeah, about 500 pounds, 5 plates each side. I was pretty stoked. I've done a four yeah, I've done 400 for a set of five before as well, which was that was pretty rough too. But those are some of my numbers. I'm trying to, like I said, I'm just trying to put on as much lean mass as possible. But
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like regular bench. I've never been able to find a comfortable position for my shoulders.
right,
And I just never felt I would never like I'd only feel it like a little bit in my chest
yeah, I got you.
compared to when you do dumbbell press where you feel it more. And that's also why I incline bench.
Yeah, well, that's really good as well. Everybody
I
else to
incline bench and
always,
I
yeah,
flat dumbbell.
yeah. Everyone I talk to always recommends doing the incline press, and obviously everybody that you're
I think
seeing.
that's what like most bodybuilders do.
Mhm.
You barely ever see bodybuilders doing flat bench.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sure my face is glowing up right here, but have you seen or used the X3 bar at all?
No, which one's that?
Okay, I'll see if I can do a screen share here. We're going to be getting a little brave here. Apps. I've actually never done this before, so bear with me for a second. Apps now. It's basically a system of bands, and I have one, and I actually really, really like it. But it's you can get different bands, and they're rated for sometimes like up to almost 600 pounds. Okay, maybe I won't be able to do this. God damn it. Oh, Jesus Christ, there's a big old button that says share screen. Wow. I am a freaking retard. All right. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, I've never seen that.
Okay, here. Where is we can log out to? All right. So I use this pretty much every single morning. I don't do it the exact same way that he does it because there's a lot of ridiculous claims that are made. I don't know. Maybe I'm. Okay. So this band he's holding, that band is supposedly rated for 600 pounds.
Yeah, I've never seen this before.
Yeah,
But
it
did you
was
buy
just
did you buy that when all the gyms closed?
yes, yes. And to be completely honest with you, it was a freaking lifesaver. Stop share. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I like all my like I it took me like my lifts didn't go up at all for months
Mhm.
because I was at home because I did mostly body weight stuff
Yeah.
and I had I had adjustable dumbbells that I was able to get maybe up to 40 pounds.
Yeah, I got
And
you.
they're like the
Yeah.
old style where you like unscrewed
Oh
and then
God,
you
yeah, I
threw a
know
little
exactly what you're
plate
talking
on.
about. Yeah, dude, they're terrible.
It's a pain
I
in the
have them
ass if I
too.
wanted to like do a superset or something like that.
Yeah, dude, you're like I never use those anymore. The X3 bar is a little pricey. It was just $100 off. Um, but I think it's like 550, and if you get the Elite Band, it may be 650. But they just had it for sale, $100 off. I bought it, and honestly, I don't regret buying it at all because you got to think for the resistance that you get with that whole setup. Um, just imagine how much you'd spend on free weights. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be so freaking ridiculous. All right, we've been bullshitting for about an hour now. Dude, let's end this on a good note. Um, what do you see happening in 2022, 2024? And do you think if Dave Smith runs for president, what do you think that looks like?
I'm hope I'm more or less like with Dave. I'm just hoping that he can maybe influence more people. They don't have to become libertarians, but like just him influence. Because luckily, he'll probably if he runs for president, he's gonna get on Rogan. He's gonna get
Mhm.
on Tim Pool because Rogan will probably end up endorsing him or voting
Absolutely, yeah.
for him. Because I think he vote. I think Rogan voted for Jorgensen,
Yeah, he's always voted libertarian, actually.
which is funny because he's like a likes Bernie Sanders and everything like that, and Andrew Yang stuff like that.
Yeah, well, there's a big appeal to Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang because they're a little bit more average people. And the one thing that Bernie Sanders had in common with Ron Paul was that he was anti-war, and he pointed to real problems that people were facing, but he had the complete ass backwards answer. Um, so yeah, man, I guess go ahead, plug your stuff where everybody can find you if they want to see you or anything you got going on.
Well, I'm on Twitter. I'm on my backup account right now. Um, I'll be on. I think my suspension's up on Wednesday, so you can find me at it's Ben Dickey, but the I is a one. And then I just recently started a Substack where it's kind of just me just like instead of going like writing a whole Twitter thread if I want to rant or something, I just write on there. And that's it's called Navigating the Clown World. And it's navigating.substack.
All right, cool, man. Well, I will plug all your stuff in the description below. I appreciate you coming on.
It was
This
awesome. It
was
was fun.
cool. Yeah, this was in Liberty and Health episode 25. Everybody take care.